This is Michael. We are back on the record.
Just begin?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at complaint number 36. 36A. And it's a very short sentence. Councilman Hector Solis, if you'll read A.
Thompson relied on questionable sources or no sources at all when he falsely stated that Solis was nothing more than a groundskeeper.
And
Thompson did not seek out other more reliable sources.
And do you know who my sources are?
I do not.
You don't know my sources. How would you know that my sources are questionable sources or no sources at all?
Because if they fed you lies, then they must be questionable.
Okay. And it would be a lie if I were to say that you did maintenance work.
It would be a lie to say that.
If a source had
groundskeeper.
told me that you did, what's the difference between a groundskeeper and a maintenance man?
I'd say there's a big difference between somebody that cuts grass and somebody that's a journeyman electrician.
Does anybody do both jobs? I mean, maintenance and groundskeeper is lawn mowing to you?
Maintenance, there's a variety of maintenance. There's different maintenance men. In the Bureau of Prison, there's HVAC technicians, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, welders. So there's a variety of different types of maintenance personnel.
I mean, you mentioned lawns. Is keeping the lawns mowed, is that part of maintenance?
It's part of the maintenance that the inmates do, yes.
Okay. Complaint number 42. All right. If you'll read number 42, please, Councilman Solis.
Over a 2-year period, Solis has been compared to a Marxist revolutionary, murderer almost daily, has been accused of committing felonies, and has had his entire 29-year career in public service / law enforcement reduced to that of a grass cutter.
All right. And you'll recall I sent requests for admissions to you, and one of the questions for admissions had to do with how long I've been asking you these questions.
Correct.
And it's admissions number 5. I said, I have asked you to verify your career as a federal law enforcement officer for at least a year before Eskridge's verification letter was posted on Facebook. You say that his letter was posted on Facebook in January 2017, correct?
Correct.
So that would mean, actually it would be January 2018.
Yeah, it was January of 2018.
2018, okay. So that would mean that I haven't been asking you these questions as long as January 2017.
Correct, that's why I denied it.
Okay, so you're saying I have not been asking you these questions for a year?
Not from that date, no.
But in your complaint,
Here, you want this right here?
yeah, thank you. Number 42, your complaint says over a 2-year period, Solis has been compared to a Marxist revolutionary, has been accused of committing felonies, and has had his entire 29-year career in public service reduced to that of a grass cutter. So you're saying that I've been doing that for 2 years here, but you say I haven't been doing that for even a year here. How does that?
It works that way because I put several things in that 2-year period. You've been comparing me to a Marxist revolutionary killer for over 2 years. The others, you made your epiphany, I believe it was on April 24th, that I was not law enforcement, which was 8 months prior to the letter. So the year regarding that you've been asking about my law enforcement for over a year was incorrect.
So you say I compare you to a Marxist revolutionary killer. Who are you speaking of?
When you've done shows stating that my similarities with Che Guevara.
Okay. Have I ever accused you of murder?
You have compared me to this Marxist dictator who was a murderer.
Have I ever accused you of murder?
Can't answer that question, I don't know. I haven't gotten all my production.
Have you ever heard me, or has anybody ever told you I said Hector Solis is a murderer?
I
Anybody
can't
told
answer
you?
that question. Nobody has told me that, no.
Have you ever heard me say that?
I have not heard it as of to date, no.
Do you believe that the media can give nicknames and lampoon elected officials?
Object to the form, you can answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're familiar with Tricky Dick,
Yes.
Richard Nixon, and Slick Willie, and Corrupt Hillary, and these colorful nicknames that elected officials have to endure.
Yes.
Would you consider calling you Che is that kind of lampooning, or is it calling you, or is it the same as calling you a murderer?
Object to the form, you answer. Yeah.
Once again, it's a comparison, whether you have a right to do it or not. Yes, you have a right to do it.
But we've established that you've never heard me call you a murderer.
Not a murder, no, just compare me to a murderer.
Okay. And you say in complaint number 42 that I accuse you of committing felonies. Now, what felony have I accused you of committing?
You've actually stated that I committed a felony when I did not have a broker's license while I was managing short-term rentals, is what you stated.
Do you have another example?
That's all I need.
Well, do you believe that when I ask, is this a case, a law enforcement version of stolen valor, do you believe that is accusing you of a felony?
No, that's not what I refer to as a felony, no.
Okay, so when I say hashtag, when I do that, when I say, is this, because usually what I say is this a law enforcement version of stolen valor, or is Councilman Solis just playing games with his credentials? And you've made a big deal about hashtag stolen valor. So it's your position that that is not, you're not accusing me of saying you've committed a felony with that?
Object to the form.
Okay, I'll ask it more clearly.
It's not that, that's not the felony I'm speaking of, but when you put my picture with hashtag stolen valor is against the law. Whether it's a felony or a second-degree misdemeanor, I'm not aware of right now. But when you associate my name with hashtag stolen valor, which is against the law, you are then stating that I'm breaking the law.
Okay, stolen valor, which law are you speaking of? Do you know?
The 2015 Congressional Act that was passed regarding stolen valor.
And that applies to
Military personnel.
military. Were you military?
No, I was not.
So how would that apply to you?
I would have to ask you that question.
I'm objecting to the form, but I mean, you can ask it, you can answer it if you know it calls for legal conclusion, but you can answer if you think you know.
Well, as I said, you're the one who labeled me with that, so,
Well,
and it's a congressional law.
All right.
And it is against the law, so when you associate me with that, you are saying that I am breaking that law.
All right. Number 36, sorry, we've already passed that. Let me ask you about, so you are suing me for defamation, and you say the damages have exceeded $15,000.
Correct.
Tell me about those damages. What have you lost?
I'm not required to list damages as a public official.
Are you able to, are you advising your client not to answer that?
Again, on deposition, you can't ask me questions. If I say I'm advising him not to answer, then I will. Otherwise, it's your deposition,
okay.
you can ask him
Sure.
questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So,
Councilman Solis, if the damages exceed $15,000, does this mean people haven't been renting your units that you rent to tourists? Does it mean you didn't get a job? Does it mean you got a pay cut?
Damages are presumed when someone is a public official in the law. Damages are presumed. You don't have to state the damages because they are presumed due to the fact that the person is in a public capacity, and the libel and slander would hurt their reputation. So they are presumed damages.
Has anybody ever told you, I'm not renting from you because of this?
Once again, that I can't tell you what goes through every person's mind that is possibly renting, that may look me up on Google and decide that I'm a questionable individual based on things that you
Is there
say.
anybody I can call and say, you didn't rent from Councilman Solis because he was defamed?
I've answered the question already.
The answer is nobody.
Once again, the presumed damages.
Presumed, but you can't point to them.
Presumed damages.
Okay. And here is the complaint that I've been pointing to.
Sorry, what was eight? What was eight?
8 is the post.
So back to your motivation for running for city council. I'd asked you if, why you ran, and you pointed to Citizens for a New PCB and give your answer. Did any of your motivation have to do with tightening up code enforcement?
At the time, no. More of it had to do with going ahead and enforcing laws that we have.
Did you ever tell one or more people that you wanted to be a city councilman so that City Hall would enforce height restriction codes more?
Not that I recall.
Not that you recall. When you became a city councilman, did you focus on height restrictions?
It's one of the things I focused on, of the many.
And who did you speak to about it? Captain Jordan with the fire department, did you ever talk to him about it?
About height restrictions,
And specifically Janice Hatcher's units?
I don't recall speaking to Jordan specifically regarding height.
Did you ever speak to Captain Jordan about Janice Hatcher's property that was under scrutiny, that eventually had an inspection warrant?
I don't recall.
Did you ever talk to City Manager Mario Gispert about Janice Hatcher's property that got an inspection warrant?
It would be more in the reference of the city manager notifying me of what the city was doing, not me actually asking him, but him notifying me as to what was going on in the city.
Did you use your position of authority as retribution against Janice Hatcher?
No.
Were you upset with Janice Hatcher for building those units?
Prior to running for office, I was upset that building codes were violated.
Specifically, you mentioned her at the city council meeting.
Prior to me being an elected official, yes.
Did you ever go into that construction unit and measure anything?
I'm going to object to that. What does that have to do with this defamation suit?
I would say it goes back to a possible trend of retribution and reprisal.
Of this person who's not part of the lawsuit?
I'll move along if you prefer.
No, I mean, I'm going to object. You can ask him and he can answer if he knows his question. I don't think it's relevant, so, object for the record, but.
Okay. Let's talk about Citizens for a New PCB, which you mentioned in your complaint on 13 and 14. You say you were the secretary for Citizens for a New PCB,
I
correct?
believe so.
And when did that, who started that organization?
Myself, Daryl Sellers, and Wes Pittman started that organization.
Daryl Sellers. Is he a friend of yours?
He is.
Okay. Have you and Daryl Sellers ever spoken about me?
It's possible.
Yeah. Have you ever sent text messages about me?
Not that I recall.
Have you ever sent emails about me?
Not that I can recall.
Facebook messages?
Not that I can recall.
Okay, so Daryl Sellers, and who was the other person?
Wes Pittman.
Wes Pittman. This is the same Wes Pittman who self-reported the inappropriate relationship with the young lady?
I'm not privy to what's going on.
Oh, it was in the
Pittman's
news.
life.
I'm just saying it was in the news. You weren't aware of that?
I may have seen something on that.
But you weren't aware of that?
It's not something that I follow.
Okay, so that's who you chose to start this organization with, Citizens for a New PCB, a nonprofit.
We joined forces because we all had the same vision to clean up spring break.
So Wes Pittman stood in front of the city council, do you recall, and said there was illicit sex going on, and he opposed it on moral grounds. Do you remember that?
I can't recall everything that was said during that period.
Okay, well, that's the same Wes Pittman. And so you and Wes Pittman and Darrell Sellers started this organization together. Has Citizens for a New PCB ever encouraged people to vote on Facebook or social media or anywhere if they are homesteaded in another state?
I'm going to object, this has nothing to do with the lawsuit. I mean, I don't know what you're getting at, I mean,
Well-
I usually retribution, but
Actually, this one, he opened the door. It's Citizens for a New PCB is specifically stated in the complaint, 13 and
I
14.
understand, but what does it have to do with allegations? in the
He
complaint?
brought it up. He brought up Citizens for a New PCB.
About them voting? About them trying to get people to
Yes.
vote for homestead?
Yes, yes. He brought up having voters vote. That's why the organization was there, to encourage people to vote and change the laws. That is correct. And so I'm asking if Citizens for a New PCB has ever encouraged on Facebook or anywhere else people to vote in Panama City Beach municipal elections if they are homesteaded in another state.
Not that I know of.
No. You say you started this organization with Darrell Sellers?
Correct.
Did Darrell Sellers vote in PCB municipal elections? Did he say he did?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
You didn't see him in the last one?
See him in the last
Vote. You don't know if he voted or not.
I couldn't tell you
Okay.
what someone's voting habits are.
And do you know where he was homesteaded when he voted?
I do not.
Would it surprise you if he was homesteaded in another state?
Judge, you just said he didn't know where he was.
Would you approve of, do you think it's okay for voters to vote if they are homesteaded in another state?
Object to the form, you can answer.
Citizens that live in Panama City Beach and state that as their residents should be able to vote in any election they like.
Even if they are homesteaded in another state?
I don't know the legalities of homesteading versus living in one place or the other.
Okay. And who are the administrators for Citizens for a New PCB?
I've stated them already as far as myself.
Well, those are the officers, that's who started, but who are the administrators on Facebook?
The administrator is Darrell Sellers.
And did this organization do any research? Was that part of the mission? I mean, you're involved as an officer.
We did some research on spring breaks in Fort Lauderdale and Daytona. Yes.
Did you spend money on that? Did the organization spend money on that?
No.
Are you able to show the studies, or was this kind of informal stuff?
Whatever subject matter experts we had spoke at the meetings. They were invited, they spoke, and that was the extent of it.
So Citizens for a New PCB, what is its status now?
I believe it is being dissolved because the mission that was done was completed, and I believe a pretty nice check was given to Girls Inc. From the money that was in there, besides whatever needed to be paid for taxes or whatever status it was under.
Did Citizens for a New PCB, did they take a position, did the organization take a position on my campaign in April?
All right, I'm reject. Don't answer it. It has nothing to do. The PCB is not being deposed here.
No.
Mr. Solis, it's not open door. If you want to bring it in front of the judge, you can bring it in front of the judge.
No.
We're not going and asking about it. If you want to ask about the allegations against you or your company in the amended complaint, then we can move forward with that. But as far as PCB, I'm going to instruct him not to answer. And
Did-
certify it and then go.
Sure,
to the
yeah,
judge.
we'll do that, Please certify and we'll ask the judge. So you're instructing him not to, just so I know the direction here, Mr. D.C. Matthews, you're instructing him to not answer questions about Citizens for a New PCB regarding its communication about me?
I am instructing him not to answer questions that are completely irrelevant to this lawsuit. And if those questions are talking about what PCB has said about you, that is nothing, that's not in the lawsuit. So I don't believe it's relevant, and I'm instructing him not to answer.
Okay.
Now, if you want to narrow it to the allegation.
Yeah,
then-
I'll ask a specific question and we'll see if this works. Did you, Councilman Hector Solis, use the resources, specifically an email list from citizens for a new PCB for communication regarding me?
Yes.
Yes. And who was on that list? Can I see that list? I'll request to see that list of recipients in the email.
I don't have a list of it.
What's the list that you want?
It was an email sent from Councilman Solis about me and my campaign, and the list was taken from citizens for a new PCB. And I'd like to know who was on that list. All of the names and addresses, please.
Can you send me an email with that, Willie?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right, let's go on to interrogatory 4, where you said you were a plaintiff in a small claims court. When was that?
I can't recall the specific date.
Do you know, was it before 2010?
It would probably be between 2010 and 2012, around that time frame.
And you were the plaintiff.
Yes.
What was the complaint?
It was an individual that had utilized equipment that my wife and I had that was under contract to them, and they failed to turn the equipment back over.
What kind of equipment?
Tables, chairs, wedding type equipment that we use for a wedding hall.
Any DJ equipment?
No.
What was the name of the other party?
Ernest Walker, and I can't remember his wife's name.
Okay, Ernest Walker. And you knew Ernest Walker from Texas?
Correct.
And you had a business dealings with him?
I did.
What did you do together?
Once again, I rented him equipment that he failed to follow through with his part of the agreement.
And what was the outcome of that case?
We won at the first level, and we won at the appellate level. And so a judgment was rendered against the individual.
Okay.
He also ended up in jail after that appeal.
Ernest Walker. Is this the same Ernest Walker who's a pastor?
I believe he states he is.
Is this the same Ernest Walker who heads up Feed a Million Veterans?
He has a son by the same name who was a veteran, so I'm not sure. I don't know.
When did you meet Ernest Walker?
Once again, I said it was between probably 2010, 2012.
Now, do you know if anybody ever wrote on Ernest Walker's home, "Go home," N-words?
Yes, I do know about that.
Tell me about that. What happened? He's a black American.
He is. He's an African American.
And did he just move into the neighborhood, or had he lived there for a while? This is in Texas.
Correct. It was a location that he was utilizing, and I was trying to get his business, help him with his business, get it off the ground.
What kind of business did he have?
He was renting out a specific location as a wedding venue.
Okay. And he endured this racism?
I'm going to object. Mr. Thompson, I don't know what these questions are, why you're asking about Ernest Walker and his time in Texas.
Well, he's
nothing to do with the complaint.
Well, it's mentioned in the small claims court.
Yes, he mentioned that he was a small claims court. What does that, besides the lawsuit in small claim, what does your question have to do with this lawsuit?
Are you objecting to the relevance or to the form?
I'm objecting to both of it. I mean, you can show me the point you're trying to get to. I mean, these are just random questions. That seem to be random questions that don't have any
Okay.
relevance to this case.
So I understand. Are you instructing not to answer these questions?
You can rephrase the question.
Okay. My question is, Do you know who these individuals were that wrote that on his home?
No.
But you're familiar with the incident.
Yes, it was very unfortunate.
Were you involved in the incident?
Object to the form. Object, don't answer that question. There's no relevance. And to the extent it can lead to this amendment, Fifth Amendment protection.
And are you claiming Fifth Amendment on this?
No, I'm claiming this is irrelevant.
Okay. If this were to go toward political retaliation and a trend, would that hold? And remember, please, I am a pro se defendant. You certainly know the legal path, and I know you can't advise me. But if there's political retribution, if there's a trend of that, of reprisal with Councilman Hector Solis, and maybe this lawsuit is part of that to shut me up, and maybe if he has a history of doing things like this to people he doesn't agree with, wouldn't that be relevant?
Okay, you can ask the questions. Again, I'm not going to answer questions. I'm not being proposed
I
here.
understand.
You're right, I can't give you legal advice. I can tell you what I believe is relevant and what I'm going to instruct my client to answer and not to answer.
Okay.
And if we don't disagree, then we have to go in front of the judge
Okay.
and the judge will make that determination.
Well, my question is, were you involved in that incident at all?
Again, I'm instructing
Okay,
him not to answer.
I'll move along. Okay, I'll move along.